absolutely 100% prefer Donald Trump as a candidate over Ron DeSantis. 100%. Now, unlike some hardcore Trumpers out there, I will say this. I will say that I do not hate Ron DeSantis. I do not hate people who support Ron DeSantis. I am not one of these people. Before all the DeSantis people come at me saying, I go, no, which they always do. That's the state, again, of this discourse. Allow me to say, I do not hate people who support Ron DeSantis. And as a matter of fact, I think that what Ron DeSantis is doing at the statewide level, I know people are saying we can't hear. Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on. Okay, anyways. I 100% think Ron DeSantis is a good governor. Okay, let me make that clear. I'm not one of these people who's going to go out there and say, well, Ron DeSantis should not be doing this, or Ron DeSantis should not be fighting Disney. But I will say that I prefer Donald Trump as a candidate currently. And let me kind of lay out the reasons why, because I know I've not talked about this very extensively. So let me tell you why I prefer Donald Trump over Ron DeSantis. And let me try to do so, again, without bringing up stupid, bad faith, or leftist talking points. Okay. Well, I think in order to kind of start the debate, let's really first ask the question of what do we need from our candidate in 2024? Like, who do we want to kind of take the White House ideally? Well, the way I see it, 2024 is not just another presidential election year. The way I honestly see it, I think 2024 is going to be the last chance that we as conservatives have to truly retake the country on a national level. And that's not to say if we lose 2024 or, you know, if we get in office in 2024 and don't do exactly what we want, then just give up on politics. But it is to say, I think if we ever want to truly make America as a whole great again, if we ever want to truly retake and occupy the federal system, then I look at kind of the time we have on our side. It's not good, right? We have the demographic issue between immigration, between young people turning older and old people passing away, right? I think if we as conservatives do not take power in 2024 and truly upend things, truly go hard on the system, it's going to be too late. I think that's going to be the last window to do it at a national level. So with that said, I think that's reasonable enough to say that in 2024, we cannot just take a chance with some Republican who's probably going to have 4 years of decent policy, right? We truly need someone who is going to get in there, dark MAGA, whatever it is, go completely scorched earth on the political system. That's kind of our only option here, okay, is my opinion. Now, with that said, I think that Donald Trump, as compared to Ron DeSantis, has a lot greater chance to do that. Now, you may say, but Vince, how do you know Trump's going to do that? Well, the answer is I don't. Yes, it is absolutely a possibility that Trump gets into office and first thing he does is immediately kind of rehashes all the same mistakes of the first term, and we basically get nothing of it. However, when I look at DeSantis versus Trump, I do think that of both candidates, Trump has a higher ceiling in that regard, right? I more so would expect for Trump to absolutely get in there because we know him, right? First of all, he's not particularly bought out by anyone. He can't be. He's wealthy, all that stuff. And that's always been the thing about him. Now, he can be manipulated, but the one thing he can't be is bought out, right? So that's number one. But then number two, I think because of everything that happened during Trump's first term with all the betrayals and especially the national security state's war that they waged against him, right? We know how that went. And that's a big thing, obviously, that we need from the next Republican candidate. We need someone who's going to truly go after the deep state, truly going to take down the federal bureaucracy. And don't get me wrong, there is a chance that maybe Ron DeSantis does that. But let's be completely honest. Yes, Ron DeSantis could get in and be a very solid conservative candidate, but really, how strong do you think the chances are that he completely goes scorched earth on the entire political system? Let's be realistic. Whereas Trump, I mean, we kind of know Trump's nature, right? He, let's be honest, is kind of a vindictive person, which is probably not the best personal quality necessarily to have. But in the sense of what we need for our country, again, let's be completely real. I think there is a non-zero chance that if Trump were inaugurated in 2025, he would completely want to just basically tear down the entire political system. And for the reasons I just explained, That's what we need, right? We need someone like that. We cannot just have kind of a solid, decent Republican president. Again, that is exactly what we need. And you may say this. You may say, but Vince, Ron DeSantis terraformed Florida. You might say, isn't he basically running Florida the way you would want the federal government ran? What exactly is the problem? What exactly is the big deal? And that's true, which is why, again, I say, is it possible that if Ron DeSantis got in power, he might do that too? Sure, right? And if he were the nominee, I would want to hope that that is what happens. But here's my thing, and here's the difference. Number one, Washington, D.C. is not Florida, right? It is a lot easier to kind of control and dominate a entirely Republican legislature at the state level as compared to Washington, D.C. That's number one. Number two, let me tell you, my real concern about Ron DeSantis is not Ron DeSantis himself. It's the type of people and the type of entities who are backing his campaign for president. Okay, so regardless of where he personally stands, chat, we can't deny this. What kind of are some of the main forces backing his candidacy? Well, there are good people out there who are doing it, sure. Like there are people out there who support DeSantis that I think ideologically are 100% there, but who's putting up the money? And who's kind of helping put up the money for him? Again, let's be real about this. It's the National Review. It's Club for Growth, right? It's groups like that. It's that sort of just neocon establishment that we don't like. Again, I'll get to Trump in a second. But my big concern with Ron DeSantis is that even if he is completely on our side ideologically deep down, what is going to happen on, January 21st, 2025? What's going to happen? What's going to happen is all of those DC organizations, your National Review types, your Club for Growth types, who, again, endorsed them because they did not want Trump and gave them all this money because they didn't want Trump. How does politics work? They're going to come back calling for political favors. That's what's going to happen. And so when it comes to that DeSantis White House, my big concern with this is, he's going to get in there and all of a sudden, all the people who backed his original first backers, who put up the money. Again, I'm not just talking about good people out there like, Matt Walsh, for instance. Matt Walsh is a DeSantis supporter. I would want Matt Walsh running the DeSantis White House. But Matt Walsh is not the type of guy putting up the money. Pedro Gonzalez, not the type of people, right? It's these sort of just big money Republican entities who just don't want Trump, right? And because DeSantis is not Donald Trump, because he's not this billionaire who's just totally uncontrollable and on his own and doesn't answer to anyone, because DeSantis is more so someone of just, Republican. He's kind of been built his whole life to just be your Republican politician. I don't really have a lot of faith that on January 21st, 2025, when Club for Growth comes calling and says, hey, I want this person to staff this position, that person to staff this position. This is going to be your chief of staff. I don't have strong faith that DeSantis can or just will be able to stand up and say no to that, right? Which is why I say, even as based as DeSantis has been on the state level, when I kind of look at the entities who are mainly backing him because they don't want Trump, right? When I look at the entities who are backing his presidential run for president, that's redundant, his presidential run, I'm just a little worried. Again, I'm not saying Ron DeSantis can't be a solid conservative president, but identifying that what we need in 2024 is some type of big time revolutionary who's truly going to tear down the system. I don't know if that's going to be Donald Trump, but I think Donald Trump has the greater chance because of everything we said, the fact that he doesn't have to get reelected, the fact that, he's vindictive about what happened the first time. I think Donald Trump has a greater chance to do that, right? And you might say, but Vince, if you want to talk about the people who are backing Donald Trump, there's bad people backing Donald Trump too. And that I would also agree with, right? Lindsey Graham, we're not a big fan, but Lindsey Graham obviously very, pro-Trump and all of that, and a lot of other different people. I think that the difference there is that it's really an issue of who is going to be able to control the other, right? Donald Trump can stand up to Lindsey Graham when they're fighting or have disagreements and just stand up and say no. Whereas, again, with DeSantis, with the people putting money up, again, he's just a politician. He doesn't have all this kind of independence behind him. Is he, again, going to truly stand up and be able to just say no to that, right? So that's number one, okay? Again, to answer the question, but he's running Florida how you would want the federal government ran. Again, true. But is he going to be able to run the federal government like that? That's number one. Now, secondly, I'll get to your super chats in a second, by the way, as I am seeing them. Don't worry. Secondly, let's talk about electability. This is inevitably what a lot of the DeSantis supporters are going to bring up. They're going to say, well, Donald Trump can't win. Ron DeSantis is the more electable candidate. Now, here's what I will say. Here's what I will concede to the DeSantis people. Under our old former political system, I would 100% agree with you, right? I think if this were still 2018 or even 2016 with that electoral system and, you know, the candidates, this and that, I would actually agree with you. I think Ron DeSantis would be the more electable guy. Here's the thing, though. With the new electoral system post-COVID, and we kind of know how that system works, we talk about it all the time, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Now, I will say this. I think if either candidate approaches the electoral system correctly, then either candidate can win. But I don't know if I necessarily say that Donald Trump is so much less electable than Ron DeSantis under the current political electoral system, and I'll tell you why. You threw out the word electability. I threw out the word turnout. Okay, you want to use your E word? I'll use my T word. Turnout, turnout, turnout. That is what elections now are about. Okay, now don't get me wrong. Before COVID, before all this early voting and mail-in voting and all that stuff, yes, the number one way you won elections is you went to the suburbs, you went to your political independents, and you tried to win over, change the hearts and minds, right? But as we see, as to how the political system works now, and the political machine, you could call it that, works now, what is it really about now, right? It's not about going to the suburbs and winning the independents. Actually, you look at suburban turnout in 2022, Republicans did quite well. But what it really is an issue of is you need to just get as many ballots as you can from your core base, right? And the Democrats have mastered that in this new system. They just go to all the natural demographic groups, right? And what do? Turn in your ballots, turnout. And the fundamental issue hurting Republicans right now is we don't have a turnout game like that. Right? We don't have a turnout game like that. You look at a lot of the 2022 races, the issue is not that, Republicans' message wasn't hitting well with political independence. Again, we did pretty well in 2022 with that. The issue was rural turnout especially, right? You look all around the country, that's what's really killing Republicans. It's not that we're turning off suburban women. It's that the rural areas are not turning out for Republicans the way the urban areas are turning out for Democrats, right? And so this is really how you win the system now. You just need to get as many ballots from your natural base as possible. And don't get me wrong. Can DeSantis do that? I think, again, if we approach this correctly, he probably can. I'm not sure, but what I will say is that, you want to talk about electability. We see repeatedly what has happened in these off-year elections when Donald Trump is not on the ballot. And what happens is rural turnout is just not there. It's just non-existent, right? I think, again, I'm not really saying this for sure, but I think there's a case to be made that in some ways with the current electoral system, even though it might defy your logic in terms of what you know about elections or what you grew up knowing about elections, being moderate helps win the moderates, I actually think there's a case to be made that Donald Trump is more electable than Ron DeSantis because of that turnout thing, because he is going to turn out our base. And again, because that's how the system works now, you just need more ballots than the other side. It's not about changing hearts and minds. It's about turning out ballots from the other side. I genuinely think that there's, again, a case to be made that Trump actually can do a better job of this than Ron DeSantis, especially in a place like Wisconsin, especially in a place like Pennsylvania, right? Because it may very well be true that Ron DeSantis is more electable in Georgia, in Arizona, and kind of your Sunbelt states. But be honest, is he the type of guy who can go up to the Midwest and take legacy Democrat voters and turn them out and get them enthusiastic? That's the issue, right? And now you may say in response to that, you may say, but yes, Donald Trump turns out people for him and against him. And that's the counter argument, right? You say, yes, it is true. Donald Trump will turn out more Republican voters, but he'll also turn out more Democrat voters. To that, I say, aha, again, you're thinking about this under the old system. Under the old system, that was true. Under the new system, again, Democrats already have this built-in advantage. And you're seeing that, right? It does not matter if it's enthusiastic or not. They just have their political machine set up so well that they will get the votes they need, and they'll get the set number of votes anyway. So it's really a matter of how do we catch up to their political machine. And again, I'm not saying Ron DeSantis can't do it, but I do think that there's a case to be made that, again, under this new system where it's turnout, Donald Trump may do a better job at that. Regardless, if you want to say they're about the same, fine, give or take, whatever it is, but I just don't necessarily know if I believe that Ron DeSantis is so much more electable than Trump, where that can be our only case for Ron DeSantis. Nor do I think that's impossible for Donald Trump to win again if we approach the political system correctly. Now, on the flip side, I'm not one of those Trump supporters who says Ron DeSantis has no chance. I do think it's going to be a struggle for him to go to a place like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and get out the turnout he needs. But I'm not saying it's impossible either. I think if he has the right infrastructure set up, then that'll be fine too. But regardless, I feel like electability in many ways is something of a moot point, because it's really not even about the candidate. They elected Joe Biden from the basement. John Fetterman is mentally retarded. It's not about that. It's just not about that at all, right? It is about how strong is your political machine. And if either candidate, Trump or DeSantis, can build a political machine, they'll be fine. So I think on either side, electability is not necessarily the best argument. But even so, I would say under the new electoral system, it may be true Trump is slightly more electable. I'm just saying, okay? Hey guys, Vince Dow here. Hope you enjoyed that clip from the Vince Dow Show. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And be sure to check out the Vince Dow Show live every weeknight here on this channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is a great show. Many are saying this. So leave a like, check out our other clips, and be sure to check out the show. Yeah. God bless.